me just read you some of the quotes. Like the writing is just beautiful. I hate it. I hate it so much. Yes, I remember nothing about this book. Ugh. Hello, my beautiful book besties. Welcome back to another monthly wrap up. Today we're going to be talking about the 12-ish books that I read in the month of July. July is strange because I feel like this month has flown by, but also been like 4 months long. I feel like that's kind of been all of 2024. It's just been a year, and I feel like it is simultaneously flying by and dragging. I don't know if anyone else feels that way, but long story short, I'm going to do my best to remember the books as clearly as I can that I read at the beginning of the month, but it kind of feels like I read them a decade ago. So I apologize if my thoughts are a little bit jumbled. I have a special guest. She is sleepy. She's on the mend from a little tummy bug that she had. It was so scary last week. I had to take her to the vet and drop her off almost all day. She was there and I didn't know what was happening, but she's good. She's getting back to normal. She had like bland chicken and rice all last week and she was thriving on her home-cooked meal diet. So she's a happy girl, but she is almost back to normal, which is super exciting. I have 12 and a half kind of books to talk about that I read. No. I need to just go to my Goodreads. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So we're going to be wrapping up the 13-ish books that I read in the month of July. I have a few extras that I haven't completely finished yet that I'm going to throw in just because I feel like I am in the process of finishing them. There's a lot of books here. Some of them feel oddly forgettable, so bear with me. But I did try my best to take notes somewhat consistently throughout the month in my phone, so like when it came time for my wrap up, I had a couple things to go off of, but even that, I barely remembered to take notes on the wrap up, so we'll see. We'll see where this goes. Bear with me. First, I read The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult, and I read this partially because I love Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and partially because I'm still kind of coming off The Nightingale, and I was looking for like a World War II historical fiction romance-ish genre, and I felt like this was a really good fit to kind of fill the gap. That said, I wish I had not gone into this with the, maybe even subconsciously, like the Nightingale expectation, because it definitely didn't wow me as much as the Nightingale did, but I did really enjoy the story and I could not predict the ending. Like I had no idea where this was going to go, and it brought out all the feels. I was angry, I was sad, I was conflicted, I was confused. There are major themes in this book about forgiveness and like what is forgivable and when can we not forgive, and morality, and there's just so much. And there's also like 3-ish different full storylines kind of braided together in a really cool way. Super unique story. I did really enjoy my time reading this. I think I'm going to settle on a 4-star rating for this book. Great if you want a heavier read, definitely not a light fluffy read, one that you really have to pay attention to. I got lost a couple times and had to reread certain parts, but overall I would recommend this book. It has nothing on The Nightingale, not sure anything will, but it did do a really good job for kind of like that historical fiction itch that I had. Then I read Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan, and I loved this book. I actually have added all the other books by Annabelle Monaghan to my book wish list because of this book. This is my first book by her that I've read and I fell in love with it. Normally a single parent trope is not my favorite. It's just kind of hard for me to connect because obviously I'm not a parent and I'm not even like really in that age range yet. I guess I am. Ooh, I am, but I'm not. But normally a single parent is a little bit difficult for me to really feel connected to the characters, but this did such a beautiful job at the depiction of parenthood, and I actually loved the kids in this book. I used to not enjoy kids in books, but the more I'm seeing it well done, I think I really do like kids in books. I think they can really add to the plot. Anyways, the romance in this was phenomenal. The character development, both of them were so complex. The writing was beautiful. The plot was beautiful. I was tabbing and annotating and highlighting. Truly just a phenomenal story. I expected like a fluffy summer rom-com, and I got a book that was like a 4.5-star read, which was not what I was expecting. This fully knocked it out of the park for me. I would highly recommend. Then I read Funny You Should Ask, and I remember nothing about this book. So I went to my notes in my phone to see if by chance I took notes on this book. My one bullet point note for this book is forgettable, which was so disappointing for me because it has really great reviews and high ratings from some people that I feel like I really connect with their book opinions. I don't know if it was right book, wrong time. I don't know if it's just like the one of us is famous trope I don't enjoy. Nothing about this book resonated with me. Nothing captured me. I really had to try to not DNF it. I think I gave this book a 3-star when I read it, but I think I'm going to settle on a 2.5. Actually, let me go check my Goodreads. I don't even remember what I gave this. Yeah, I gave it 3 stars, but I'm going to say 2.5. It just really did nothing for me, as you can tell. I don't remember anything about it. Couldn't even tell you the characters' names. Gabe? Yeah, I don't know. Did I even read it? Couldn't tell you. Then on my Kindle, I read Frida's newer release, and that is The Housemaid is Watching. This is actually my Patreon's book of the month pick for July, so I will say this book was good as any Frida book. It was super fast paced, captivated me. I was hooked from the beginning. I didn't know what was going on. There was twists and turns, and I read it in, I think, under 48 hours. So in that aspect, it was great. In terms of true enjoyment and wow factor and shock factor, I wasn't completely blown away. I gave this book 3 stars, which I feel like is very middle of the line for a thriller. Not good, not bad, but just kind of there, like it exists. I will say though, reading this with my Patreon book club and having like the live chat discussion and then like a video chat book club and being able to talk about it and dig into it, it made me feel like I enjoyed the book more. Like after the live chat discussions and everything, I felt like maybe I could bump it up to like a 3.5 star. Something about being able to have discourse around a book makes it feel like you're more invested. I don't know, having the live book club chats and being able to talk to a bunch of book people about a book that I'm reading is just another top tier experience. Like it just takes it to another level. And so I'm torn between a 3 and a 3.5. Maybe we'll say a 3.25 for this. But I have to be super honest, like the Housemaid series as a whole is not my favorite. Like I know it's so hyped on Book Talk and like one of the like OG Book Talk thrillers, I feel like, but I like The Last Mrs. Parrish better. I think I even liked Verity better, dare I say it. The Wife Upstairs, like the plot line just feels super overdone. And then book 2, I did not enjoy. The Housemaid Secret. Couldn't even tell you one thing about that book. And then this one I did enjoy. I would place this as like my second favorite in the series, but the whole Housemaid series as a whole is just okay for me. I'd say it's like a 3.5 star series as a whole. So I wasn't expecting to be wowed, but it was really fun to read this with my book club. Then I read The Last Love Note by Emma Gray. Yes, Emma Gray. And this is her debut novel. And can I just say, like, what? A debut novel. And it is this gorgeous. How? Literally, how is this a debut? Absolutely phenomenal, absolutely beautiful, emotional and raw and vulnerable, and the depiction of grief in this book I felt so connected to. Another one that I tabbed and annotated and highlighted. Let me just read you some of the quotes. Like the writing is just beautiful. That's the problem with grief. It's not packed tidily in a box that you can bring out in appropriate private moments and sort through. It's threaded inconveniently through everything. Yeah. I'm afraid nobody will ever love me that much again, and that I won't have the capacity or maybe the courage to love that much again either. Ugh. Someone like him will never know what this is like, to let yourself go and fall so deeply into the life of another person that their loss almost breaks you, that it renders you simultaneously as terrified of loving again as you are of not loving again. Goodbye. Are you kidding me? This book just like shattered and healed my heart at the same time. Phenomenal. 4-star read, easy, maybe 4.5. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful story. Then I read Listen for the Lie. I actually listened to this on audio, which was really exciting because this is a lot like None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell, if you've read that, in that there's a lot of podcast formats. So like Listen for the Lie, the whole premise of this book is a mystery is being covered by a podcaster, like a true crime podcaster. And he like comes to this small town and actually forms relationships with all the people that he is investigating and like interviews them, and you get like the full podcast feel if you listen to the audiobook. So this is one I would definitely recommend audio if you can get your hands on it. So definitely a great audio read. I can't think that I would be as invested if I read it like the physical copy, because the audiobook even lost me a couple times, and it was a really well done audiobook. So essentially this follows Lucy, our main character. I believe her name is Lucy. I'm the worst at remembering characters' names. But this follows our main character who is accused of the murder of her best friend, who went missing after they attended a wedding together, and Lucy was the last person that was seen with her, so she's been blamed for the murder of her best friend. But Lucy was also injured that night. She has like amnesia from a head injury that she got that night. So she doesn't remember the exact events that happened, so she can't even like attest for herself. So when people are blaming her, she has no choice but to be like, oh my God, maybe I did kill my best friend. But we are digging deep into the mystery and finding out the truth, if she is guilty or not guilty. This book was good, not great in my opinion. Not one I'll be thinking about forever, but I did enjoy my time while I was reading it, which solidifies it as another 3-star thriller for me. Again, I would highly recommend the audio version if you can, because I feel like it just brought it to life. I don't know, just my take. I think I would recommend the audio of this a little bit more, but it was a good thriller. It had me invested the whole way through, and there was lots of twists and turns, and it was exciting. Then I read The 5 People You Meet in Heaven, and I checked this out from the library, and I have to say I wasn't wowed. But I have to take this on the chin and own my part in this. This wasn't what I was expecting. I thought this was like a memoir about grief and loss. It's like a fantasy magical realism about going to heaven. I didn't connect with it. I tried reading it physical, I tried reading the ebook, and then I tried listening to it. None of it stuck. I just couldn't get into it. I couldn't. I'm sorry. I know this is a super popular book, and so I hate to say that. I'm not going to say a ton about it. I'm not going to sit here and hate on a book. That's never my intention. So I'm just going to say this was a 2-star read for me. Not a favorite by any means, but honestly not what I was expecting. So maybe my expectations were part of the problem. Then I read probably my favorite book of the month. I read Play Along, the 4th book in the Windy City series. My copy should be here soon. Fingers crossed. I ordered from the UK. Long story short, don't ask me why I did that. But oh my gosh. This follows Isaiah, who is the brother of Kai, who is the main character in book 3 of this series. So this is like another professional baseball romance, and there is like a fake marriage / marriage of convenience. And oh my gosh. If you love the he falls first, he falls harder, just like these sweet boys in books, this is for you. I'm obsessed with him. I'm obsessed with her. This series reminds me why I love to read. Every book I have picked up from Liz Tomford, which I guess is only the Windy City series, to be fair, but it's phenomenal. 5-star read, absolutely incredible. I love her characters. I love her romance. She reminds me of Elsie Silver a bit in like opposite tropes, and like Elsie Silver is more normally like cowboy-y small town, and this is like Chicago wealthy sports romance, but they kind of are similar in the way that they write like super strong female main characters and the sweetest male main characters that you can't help but fall in love with. Complex characters, beautifully executed tropes, absolutely phenomenal. I loved this book. 5-star read. Read the Windy City series if you have not yet. I can't say it enough. Phenomenal. Then I read Reckless, which is coming out in a vlog, which is also actually has the Play Along, the previous book, in the vlog as well. Haven't edited it yet, so it's just like sitting in my archive, so hopefully you see it soon, but we'll see how productive I feel. I've been struggling. Your girl's tired. Anyways, I read Reckless, which is book 2 in the... Is it just called the Powerless trilogy? Does it have a different name? Powerless series. Okay, so this is officially book 2. It's book 3 that's been released, but the second book is kind of like a 1.5. It's a novella. So there's Powerless, then Powerful, the novella, and now there is Reckless. So I read Reckless and I was underwhelmed. I hate to say it, but it had middle book syndrome to me. It felt like a bridge book. It just felt slow at times. The banter was good. Like, I think Lauren Roberts is the queen of like tension and banter. Like, I hate you, but I'm flirting with you, and kind of like that. We're butting heads, but also we like each other. I don't know. This book was not as amazing as I expected, but it wasn't bad by any means. So I ended up giving this 3 stars, I believe. Yeah, I ended up giving this 3 stars, and I just wasn't blown away. The first book for me was like a 4.5 star. I was super excited about it because I felt like it was getting me into fantasy, and then this one just fell a little bit flat for me. Wanted a little bit more, but I will say the ending shook me. I like felt like maybe it was coming, but I also didn't think that it was coming. So now I just can't wait to see what happens in book 3. She's announced book 3, and I can't wait to see where she takes it, because like, how are we bridging this gap? Like, how are we recovering from the ending of this book? If you know, you know. So a little bit underwhelmed, but still a good read in my opinion. Definitely feels necessary to the series, but kind of has like that middle book syndrome. Then I read Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth, and this is a thriller, but there was like no thriller going on. This was a great general fiction, women's fiction, maybe even like with a mystery subplot, or even a mystery. But I was sold this as a thriller, and it was not thrilling. However, I did enjoy the book, and I tried to not get caught up in like the genre label because that's not really a fair representation of the book. It's not a fair way to judge it just because I didn't feel like it lived up to the thriller label that was slapped on it. It was still a really great book, but I would go into it with the expectation of like a general fiction with some mystery rather than it being like super gripping and thrilling. That said, I gave this 3.5 stars, so it was really enjoyable. It captivated me. I flew through it. I read this really, really quickly. And it was good, but not thrilling. I guess I could give you the premise of this. So essentially this is about 3 women who grew up together at like a group home or a foster home. And later in their adult life, they are contacted by a agent or like a detective to solve a mystery because there were human remains found underneath the group home that they lived in. So they're kind of reliving their life at the group home and some really weird, abusive, and like just not okay things that went on while they were there. And also they're kind of suspects in the murder because they were there potentially at the time, and so they're just kind of like getting to the bottom of this case. Sounds kind of thrillery, but it didn't feel thrillery. It just felt like a general fiction with mystery. So just go into it maybe with that expectation, and I think you could really enjoy it. I enjoyed the story, but wouldn't categorize it as a thriller. Then I read 1,000 Broken Pieces, another new release, and another book heavy on the grief, heavy on the tears, heavy on the annotating. Beautiful. Beautiful book. This is the second book to 1,000 Boy Kisses, and it follows different characters than 1,000 Boy Kisses, but definitely the follow-up and like walking through the grieving process. I think if you know grief or you've been really deeply impacted by grief, this book could be super meaningful for you. I know that it felt really impactful for me. Like some of the quotes in this book were just phenomenal. Let me read you one I think that stuck out. This right here. She says, "I should have been able to cope by now. I know people think I should be able to move on already." And another character says, "I don't think grief works like that. I don't think grief sticks to any timeline. If someone judges you for how long it's taking you to move past a loved one's death, be happy for them because it means they've never experienced it." Yes, 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 yes. Sometimes I get in my head and I'm like, months have passed. Like, how am I not moving on? But like, there's no moving on. You know what I mean? Like, there's just, you grow with the grief. I don't think the grief lessens as you move forward through life. I think you kind of like grow around it. I don't know. We could have a full TED talk here about grief, but this book was beautiful. So many emotions. There were tears shed. I can guarantee it. And I gave this a 4 star. I didn't fully connect to the romance, and I think that's why it wasn't a 5-star read for me. The romance in this book I didn't really love until the final like 15% of the book. Like the whole first chunk of the book, I wasn't completely sold on the romance. I was really reading for the grief aspects, which definitely delivered, but the romance just fell a little flat for me. So that's the only reason it's not a 5-star, but by the end of the book, I did feel connected to the romance. The ending was beautiful. Just a beautiful book overall. Heavy, emotional, and tragically beautiful. Then I have maybe my second favorite book of the month, and that is Wild Love by Elsie Silver. So I finally finished the Chestnut Spring series last month, so if you missed that wrap up, go check it out. But I was really excited to dive into Wild Love because this follows Willa from book 2 of Chestnut Springs, her brother. So this is a billionaire romance, small town romance, brother's best friend romance, forbidden love a little bit, workplace romance. Like there's a lot of tropes in here, honestly, and all of them are executed perfectly. Oh, also single parent romance. Elsie Silver knows how to do the tropes. I don't think I've seen one trope done poorly by her. Even tropes that I absolutely despise have been 5 stars from her. Like it's insane how she does it. I love this book with my whole heart. I love Ford Grant so much. This was phenomenal. I loved this book. 4.5 stars for me. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Then I read Honey, and this has been on my TBR since it came out, and I finally got to it. And this is like a development of a pop star in the late 90s and early 2000s. So kind of like Britney Spears energy, and very heavy on like the scene that you can imagine would be like the pop star world, if that makes sense. So lots of like sexually explicit content, lots of talk about like disordered eating habits and mental health struggles and addiction struggles and those types of things. I felt like this book, I think my like halfway point update on Goodreads was I'm bored, but I also have whiplash because so much is happening, and that kind of sums up this book. I will say this writing was really beautiful. There were lots of lines and quotes in this book that were phenomenal, like absolutely phenomenal. Specifically, I feel like about womanhood and like the pressure that is placed on women in society. So that was really beautiful. But the plot itself lost me a couple times. And I also, hot take, I hate lyrics in books. And there's so many, like literally I opened this book randomly and there's a page of lyrics, like song lyrics. I hate it. I hate it so much. I will skim them and it gives me the ick. Like something about reading lyrics gives me the ick. It feels like someone's singing to me a little bit and I cringe internally. Like, don't sing a song to me trying to be like romantic or anything. I will laugh in your face. And that's kind of how it feels with reading lyrics. I don't know. It just like, this book felt a little disorganized, I will say. There's a lot of like mixed media that I don't think was necessarily done well. Just kind of felt random. So I don't know. Mixed opinions. 3 stars on this one because like I said, there were some lines and quotes that were really great, but the plot was lacking a little bit. You know, we've been filming for like 30 minutes and I haven't addressed the one painted fingernail. My nails are naked because I am going to do them with my friend later today. But I was filming a TikTok. If you follow me, you know like my what I read in a week, where I like flash the book in front of the camera. And I didn't want my thumb to be super ugly, so I did one quick coat of Insta Dry Polish, and it looks probably even worse than if I just left it. It's like see-through and doesn't look good, but I have one painted thumb. So if you've noticed that, it's not a new trend. Don't do it. It's simply because I was filming a TikTok and I'm lazy, and that's behind the scenes of my TikTok. Anyways, let's continue. The last book I'm going to talk about is Grief is for People, and I haven't officially finished this book, but I wanted to include it in the wrap up because I'm almost done with it. I have so many mixed opinions. I don't typically rate memoirs or nonfiction, but I just feel like this book, it's meaningful, but it's another one that feels really disorganized. It almost feels like a extended essay, but like 3 essays where you took chunks of each and like put them all together. Like she talks a lot about being robbed. Like someone broke into her apartment and stole all her grandma's jewelry that she had. So that's like a huge plot point. And then she jumps to like the death of one of her best friends. And like, it just feels like, I'm sure there's some metaphor underneath and like I can draw the connections sometimes, but it feels overall a little disorganized to me. I don't know. There's still meaningful parts in this and it still is a quality book on grief. I'm not going to give it a star rating, but I will just say it feels a little bit chaotic while I'm reading it. And then the last book I want to talk about, it's not going to be in this wrap up because I'm not even close to done with it, but I did start Binding 13, and I want to say this because I kind of flopped a little bit on my July TBR. I set a really ambitious TBR and I think I skipped like 4 of them. I DNF'd one. I didn't get to 1. I didn't get to 2 or 3. I did a really bad job on my July TBR, but this was like the one that I was like, guys, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So I wanted to stay true to my word and at least start it in the month of July. So I do want to update that I am in the process of reading Binding 13, but way too early to share any thoughts or definitely do a wrap up. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed for next month's wrap up because we'll be talking about it then. But that is all for another monthly reading wrap up with me. Those are the 13, 12, 14. I don't know how many books I read, but those are them, and that's all I think I have for this video. So thanks for bearing with me as I try to pull my thoughts out of the depths of my memory regarding these books. I probably did a really bad job of summarizing them, but that's okay. If you made it to this point, I love you and I appreciate you so much. Make sure you're following me on all the things and join the book club if you want to. It's always linked down below. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any future videos, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye, book besties.